Good afternoon. That was absolutely horrible. Good afternoon. 10% better. How many remember me from years past? Okay, I'm going to make this short and sweet. We're looking at the statistics at the FBI Academy the other day, and we're finding that sexual assault is on the rise. It's the biggest crime done to young people, but the least reported. Can anybody here help me out and tell me why you'll tell if someone steals your car, steals your money, or hits you, but you don't tell about sexual assault? That's a crime also. So why is there a difference? Why do you tell about one and not the other? Can anybody tell me? Please. It is embarrassing, I get it. And that's the biggest reason young people don't tell, not threats or anything else. It's because of embarrassment. Now, when you do tell, though, we have found 90% of you at your age tell their very best friend, and then they tell them not to tell. So my question to you today is, and you teach me, and I go back to the FBI Academy and we get in a think tank about helping young people, we put out these ideas on how to make these programs better. So you tell me, if your very best friend came up to you today and said, hey, what that Terry Hall guy was talking about at school today, that's happening to me, but you're my very best friend, please don't say anything. How many would not tell if their very best friend begged them not to? Just be honest. How many would not tell? Okay, it looks like about 5. Those 5 people, if I ask them, why do they not tell? They would say, I don't want to lose my friend. Isn't that kind of selfish? Your friend's being sexually assaulted or been sexually assaulted and you don't want to lose a friend? That's the reason your friend was sexually assaulted, because somebody else's friend didn't tell and someone else's friend didn't tell. I arrested a person up in Tipton, Indiana. He confessed to me he had sexually assaulted 300 young people in a 30-year period. Somebody in this room tell me how you can get to 300 young people and me, the police, not find out about it. Because 299 didn't tell. It's a simple answer. 299 didn't tell. So when you say, I'm not going to tell, you're really telling your friend, I don't want to lose your friendship. Yes, I know you've been sexually assaulted, and I know the person who assaulted you is going to assault other kids, but I just don't want to lose your friendship. If you're my friend, I tell you this, you got 3 choices. 1, you and I go to the counselor together. 2, I go by myself. Or 3, you go by yourself. Why? Because I played that game. When I was in high school in Shelbyville, I had a friend of mine that I discovered was on drugs. He said he's only taking drugs when he's stressed out, and he's stressed out about some tests coming up. I said, okay, so I was a good friend. I kept the secret. 2 years later, he died of a drug overdose. Let me see the hands of somebody who thought I was a good friend. See, a good friend makes better decisions than that. A good friend says, man, this person's getting addicted to drugs. I need to step up and I need to help them. Would I had to tell? Yep. Could he have got in trouble? Yep. Could he be alive today? Yep, he sure could be. His family today still will not speak to me because they know that me and a couple of his friends knew and did not step up and get him some help. So see, and then when you do tell, what makes me angry is adults don't believe you just because you're teenagers. I get really upset by that. But then what do? Your little brothers and sisters come up and tell you about a sexual assault and you don't believe them. You don't know how many elementary kids I talk to and I ask them, have you told anyone else about this at the end of the interview? And they go, yes, my big brother in high school or my big sister. And they thought I was lying. People, you know how embarrassing it is to talk about this to you. What do you think a little kid, how embarrassing it is to talk to them? And should they have that information? If they're telling you graphic details about sexual assault, there's only one way. They should know that information. That's a learned behavior. That means they have seen it or experienced it. And they'll tell you before they will their parents, because you get in trouble just like they do, and they bond to you quicker. So please don't sell them down the river. Then we come up to another thing with sexual assault is we think this is a girls' issue. It's always girls. Well, got to be careful, girls. You know more boys are sexually assaulted than girls? Girls tell 3 times more than boys. That's why when we looked at the statistics, we used to thought this was a girl problem. But then after we started finding mass molestations, they were almost always boys. Why? Because a pedophile, child molester, if they're a serial molester, that doesn't mean they're touching Raisin Bran or something like that. It means they're touching at least 100 kids before they're caught. If they're a serial molester, they want the gender that tells the least. That's boys. And they want the gender that's above suspicion when they're around them. Since 80% of the molesters are men and 20% or so are women, then, it's a good chance if you are molested, it would be by a male. But males who have alternative lifestyle, they're engaged with males, not children or not young people or kids. So if it has happened to you, and by this age level, it's probably already happened if it has, don't think there's something wrong with you. When I was 8 years old, I was sexually assaulted by a family member from Greensburg. I lived in Shelbyville. That person lived here. And this person was great, just loved kids, was always buying us things and doing things for us. And when I told, my family divided right down the middle. Half of them said, there's no way that person could ever touch you because they're great with kids and they never charge us to babysit. Duh. And then the other half said, they got you too? I thought I was the only one. So 14 members of my family were molested while I was waiting to tell. And believe me, that's a burden that I'll carry till my death. I know it wasn't my fault. I know that it was something I didn't understand. And at 8 years old, what was I supposed to do? But I still feel that guilt. When we talk about being your fault, sexual assault at this age level is not the guy jumping out of a white van with ninja clothes on and nunchucks, touching your private parts and driving off into the sunset, like elementary kids think. It's usually done in a much easier way by getting you doing something wrong. At this age level, you're not real fan of the rules. Most of our sexual assault that comes by people your age usually come from someone getting you to do something that you wouldn't normally do. For instance, we had some high school guys in Indianapolis that were taking freshman girls. They would have them come to a party and they would have them drink some beer and they'd have them smoke a joint, maybe experiment with a little meth. Then they would sexually assault these girls. Do you think any of those girls are going to come into my office at the police station and say, hey, Sergeant Hall, I was out smoking dope and I was drinking underage and I was doing this and that and then I was sexually assaulted. Can you help me out? I want everyone in this room to know, as a law enforcement officer, there's no way I'm going to say, well, served you right to get sexually assaulted. You shouldn't have done this or you shouldn't have done that. I understand that these predators, they have a procurement process. And one of the procurement process is getting you doing things wrong so you'll think the sexual assault's your fault. It can never, ever be your fault. I don't care what you do. I even had some freshman girls were talked into some high school guys breaking into outbuildings. The police are not suspicious as if 4 girls are walking through the neighborhood as they would be 4 guys walking through the neighborhood during school time. These girls cut school and they would break into outbuildings and steal stuff. They would take it to pawn shops and sell it, and then they'd have a big party. The party consisted of 2 girls and 10 guys, and they didn't know that till they got there. Then sexual assault would happen. You think these girls are going to come in my office and say, hey, I was out breaking into outbuildings and stealing stuff so we could have a big party, then I was sexually assaulted. Gang, I am smart enough to know that you're lured into doing some of these things and we're not going to be faulting you. We're not going to appreciate your choices, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, the sexual assault's never your fault. Sexual harassment can be. That's one of the biggest problems we're having right now is sexual harassment. And they're taking it out of the hands of police and they're civil suing you and your parents. We had a young man that was playing a ball tagging game and a purple nurple, just hitting boys in the groin and stuff like that. We had a young man that was hitting a groin. He fell back in the school bathroom, hit his head on the corner of the sink, took 8 stitches to close a hole in his head. That's aggravated assault when you do something like that. Don't come in and tell me, oh, I was just playing a ball tagging game and it got out of hand or whatever. No, when you hit someone in a private part of the body and then they're injured, you're in some serious, serious trouble. And believe me, it's hard to get good jobs anyway, good paying jobs. And when you're getting a job $50 an hour and they're asking you, have you ever been arrested? And you say, nah, just that sexual battery case I had on me. When do I start? You're not going to get that job. You guys aren't little bitty kids anymore. You're young men and young women. In my job at the intelligence unit, the last 19 years of the police department, I did dignitary protection as a liaison to the Secret Service. I've met and talked to 6 different presidents of the United States. I have a top security clearance. You think I'd have got that top security clearance if they'd have found that I had been arrested for sexual harassment? And then that's not enough. You guys are taking your cell phones. You call them nudes or you call them sexting. We call it disseminating child pornography via public airwaves. In other words, if you take a picture of your own private parts and send it, that's what you could be charged with. And I don't really grasp it. And then when I get to your house, I knock on the door and say, Sergeant Hall, Annapolis Police Department, have a search warrant for your phone. 99% of you say this. Wait a minute, Sergeant Hall, you don't understand. I didn't take that picture. Somebody else took it and sent it to me, and all I did was send it on. Thank you for your confession. Put your hands behind your back. You're coming with me. When you push that send button, you bought a piece of that problem. And I don't grasp how you think that we can't find that stuff out. We have computer forensic experts that do nothing but track back those IP addresses. And then the other day we had cyberbullying to the point where a high schooler about your age was sending things like, you're stupid, you're fat, you're dumb, you're ugly, and then sent, why don't you kill yourself? If that student does kill yourself, we'll be visiting you. And I cannot believe the amount of lawsuits. Some of these lawsuits are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. You pay for the kid that you cyberbullied. You pay for their counseling until they reach the age of 21. They take it out of your salary. I don't have to ask you for it. They'll go to court, and any job you get, a partial of that paycheck will be going to that family for the counseling for their kid. And gang, if you are so mean that you've got to make another young person feel bad to make yourself feel good, when you get out of that chair today, you go to your counselor and say, I have a problem. I need to make other students feel bad so I feel good about myself. I have spent 40 years in law enforcement arresting and locking up people who hurt people your age and younger. I don't want you to have these problems. I want you to grow up healthy and happy. I don't want you to be victimized by something like this. And what do? You do it to each other. I really don't grasp that. It's not funny, it never was, and it's against the law. Now, you better hope that if you're doing sexual harassment, that your staff here at the school call the police and let us get involved. Because here's what's been happening. You walk by, there's a girl walking in a hallway, you pinch her on her breast, everybody thinks it's funny. All of a sudden she goes home and tells her dad. Her dad just got out of Afghanistan as a Marine sniper. How's your day going? You better hope they call the police, because I've had parents, fathers and big brothers go insane, and they deal out their own meter of justice. And it doesn't involve the police until after it's done. Guys, sexual assault is not something that's funny. It's something that can change your whole entire life. When I was sexually assaulted, I ran away from school. My grades went from A's and B's to D's and F's. I became a teacher's nightmare because I was angry at all adults because I thought all adults could do that. And you have to understand that when this happens, you need that help. You need to go get some counseling, or you need to go talk to somebody. There's not a weakness there. It just means that you need some help. Plus, finding out who the predator is helps other young people. I just don't like it when I have a kid come in and tell me about a predator, and then I find out 10 or 15 kids knew all along, but no one has said anything. And that's a victim after victim after victim. Now, let's talk about the internet for a little bit. The internet, all you guys get on the internet, and a lot of you guys play video games. We're having a lot of predators get on the internet, play video games and stuff, and they start gleaning information from you. You're smart enough to know at this age level, you don't put information out there. But I'm asking you today to watch your brothers and sisters. I had a case where a 12-year-old little girl had been trained by her brother in high school never, ever to give your address out. She wasn't, but she was bragging to all her friends. She was talking to a 15-year-old boy on the weekends, and that 15-year-old boy was really a 50-year-old child molester that just got out of prison. What does she do? She doesn't give her address, but as she's chatting with him, she says, hey, I can't chat with you any longer. I got to meet my friends across the street at Garfield Park. Now, we were monitoring this bad person. Otherwise, we'd have never known this. How long do you think it'd take that predator to drive to that park? Right away. That person was there in 15 minutes and already knows what she looks like because she's posted her picture online. So you guys are smart enough to know what to do and what not to do, but please help your little brothers and sisters too. That you know more about computers and your cell phones than your mom and dad does. Believe me, I have a 15-year-old grandson that's my iPhone expert. I call him all the time. I'm having trouble. So please take that knowledge and turn it for good and make sure you monitor your brothers and sisters about it. Any questions about sexual assault? Any questions about cell phone issues? Any questions about internet? And any questions about sexual harassment that I can answer for you today? I'm here for one reason today, and that's because your school thought 30 minutes out of your time was important, because if just one of you out there needs help, this is the day to get it. I'd be glad to talk to any of you. I think you're going to get some slips today, if I'm not mistaken, and you can check out, I need to talk to someone, or I don't need to talk to someone. You don't have to have those slips. You can talk to anybody at all. If it's specifically for me, then you'd have to tell your teacher on the way out. When it happens to you, you're called a survivor, because it's not going to stop your life, but it does make you more sensitive to what young people are going through. And you guys got enough on your plate. There's no way, believe it or not, that if I had a wish that I'd come back to be your age. It's just too much out there that's against you. And the school here and the school administrators are trying to get you a good education so you can handle this stuff on the outside. And one of these things is knowing that you can go to people and talk to them, especially about sexual assault. If it happens, you guys are getting ready to go to college. And boy, colleges are just like small towns. There's murders on campus. There's burglaries on campus. There's rapes on campus. So be aware that when you go to these places, take care of yourself and make sure who you're hanging out with. I have a college question for you. My daughter went to a University of Southern Indiana to get her education, a very fine school. She was asleep, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, a roommate woke her up and said that she got a wrong number on their phone, and she got to talking to the person. They seemed like a really nice person, so she invited them over at 2 o'clock in the morning. I want you to be my daughter for a second. Tell me what you would do in that situation. I want to see where your mindset is. What would you do in that situation? Yes? Lock the door. So they have to kick it in, right? Okay. Anybody else got any suggestions? Yes. Get everyone out of there and they're waiting outside for you. Anybody else? Call the popo. Yeah. Get on the phone and call security. And that's exactly what my daughter did. She got on the phone and she said, hey, I just realized my roommate's an idiot and invited somebody over at 2 o'clock in the morning. Can you send someone by? Security came over, sat in a lot, and the person never showed up. I bet they showed up and saw security and then changed their mind. But see, that's the kind of things you got to make decisions on. I've had high schoolers say, I'd get a steak knife and sit in front of the door. Okay. Or I'd take off outside. All right. You got to get authorities involved, somebody that can be there to protect you, because you never know what these people are going to do. And the person could have been a great guy. No, I don't know. But why take the chance? Just do level-headed thinking when you're in school and these situations arise. Any other questions whatsoever? Thanks for taking time to listen. I know you've heard this over and over and over, but please, if this has happened to you, even if it was in the second grade, I guarantee you that predator is still out there sexually assaulting young people. Tell today. Let someone know. Let us take a look and see what they're doing. Are they involved in kids? Are they volunteering for kids programs or whatever? So we can stop this, because it does change people's lives. Give yourselves a hand. Thanks for being courteous.